Welcome to the Perpetual Growth Podcast with Zach Palmer, the show where we explore the strategies, insights, and stories that empower you, grow your business, strengthen your relationships, and elevate your health. Because growth isn't just about what you achieve. It's about who you become along the way. Today, I am thrilled to welcome Zeb Welborn. Zeb's mission is to connect with individuals who are passionate about their work, excel in their field, and use their talents to make the world a better place. As president of the Chino Valley Chamber of Commerce, Zeb has led efforts to exponentially increase their impact, create sustainable systems, and establish the Chino Valley Chamber as a national model of excellence. And as president and owner at Welborn Media, Zeb helps businesses grow by leveraging innovative digital marketing strategies that engage audiences and deliver measurable results. So let's dive in and take another step on your journey toward perpetual growth.
Zeb, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you today.
Zach, thank you so much. I'm super excited to chat with you today.
Yeah, super excited to have you on. So Zeb, we were chatting a little bit before we kicked off the recording here. I'd love to lead in just with a little bit about your background. Take us through a consolidated version, which if you're anything like me, as we know, is not the easiest thing to do. Brevity's never been a strong suit, but a consolidated version of your professional journey. Where did you start? How did you end up where you are today as the president of the Chino Valley Chamber? Also simultaneously running your own media business. I mean, that's either one of those is a handful in and of themselves. So being able to balance the two is fantastic. But if you would just tell us a little bit about who you are, tell the audience about what brought you here.
Yeah, so fresh out of college, I was actually a high school history teacher. So I taught high school history for 4 years. I was going through some personal challenges at the time, and I kind of left teaching and I traveled the country for about 3 months. And my plan was I was just going to try to find a job somewhere. But it was 2007, and when I left teaching, I didn't realize that it was going to be 2007, so I couldn't find a job anywhere. So I traveled the country for 3 months. I moved back home with my parents, and I could not find a job anywhere. The only job that I could find was tutoring this one kid in a one-on-one capacity. And since I couldn't find a job, I was like, well, maybe I could just turn this into a business. I had no business knowledge or background whatsoever, which sounds like very similar to your story. So through that, I was like, well, let me build a website. If I can get on the top of Google, then I know that I can get some clients. And so I tried to figure that out. So I was trying to figure out how to get on the top of Google. We did that. So my tutoring business took off. But one of the kids that I was tutoring, his mom was a business owner. She saw what I was doing with all of the email marketing and the social media and the website. She's like, I would love to hire you to do that stuff for me. So she hired me. It paid a lot more than what I was making with the tutoring business. So I hired somebody to take over the tutoring business, and then I took over this media digital marketing business full time, which is what brought me to the Chino Valley Chamber of Commerce. So I lived in Chino Hills, born and raised here. And so I joined this business community. And when I was looking for it, like exactly like your story, I was looking for mentors. I knew nothing about business. I wanted to learn from people who had done business well. I had made this decision that I was going to be my own business owner, and I just needed to get some expertise and get connected with people who are experts in their field. So that's why I joined the chamber. And then I was running my internet marketing business. I got on the board of directors of the chamber. Our business was named like Business of the Year for our city, which is a really cool thing for me. And then I got on the board. I was chair of the board. And then there was some shakeup at the leadership role. So the board of directors at the time had asked me to take it over. So I had done it temporarily for a little while, a few years previous. So in July of 2018, I took over the Chino Valley Chamber of Commerce as their president and CEO. So over those 6 years, and when I took it over, it was a struggling organization on the verge of kind of financial ruin, I guess you could say. So over those 6 years, we substantially changed that chamber. Like you mentioned, we're a model of excellence. So we're named finalist of the year this last year for the work that we do in our chamber business. And then, yes, I do run my internet marketing business. I'm lucky that my sister and I are partners. So we do digital marketing together. And my sister, for the most part, handles and runs that one. And we have several employees that work in that business. Most of my time, effort, and energy does go to the Chino Valley Chamber.
Yeah, I have to imagine. Wow, what a fantastic journey. I mean, from tutoring to, in essence, having to figure out all the hard stuff along the way. I know that's the same process for me. It was like, all right, well, there's not enough people coming in the door. What about this marketing thing, which, is a very large blanket term because there's a countless different specialties when it comes to marketing. And if we got more people coming in, how do we sell and enroll them more effectively in an authentic, high integrity, morally driven way? And then, of course, we want to deliver the best experience for them as well and ensure that they get the best results they can. So, all of that, I know for me, was a long journey. I mean, decades long journey, but it was also worth its weight in gold. One thing I'm really curious about is the interpersonal dynamic with you and your sister, because I, like you, worked in a family business to begin with. I took over a family business at 19 years old. Now, I worked under my dad for the better part of the first year. They moved back to Hawaii, and that's when I took over the organization. And then about 8 years later, they came back. And I can say that my dad and I working together was a bit of a challenge because, it was like he would very good about pulling the trump card when he wanted to. It was like, well, I own the company. But then the next day it was like, well, you're in charge. You need to make the decision. I'm like, well, which hat do you want to wear? Because so the dynamic of working with family can be extremely rewarding and can also be extremely challenging. How has that worked so well with you and your sister? What are some of the challenges that you guys have gone through? Was it difficult identifying your lanes and who was going to be responsible for what? Talk to us a little bit more about what that looked like, because I know there are a lot of small family businesses out there.
Yeah, no, that's yeah, I hear you on that front. I will say that in my experience, is just working with people in general is the challenge. So yes, working with family is a totally different dynamic, but still it's working with people, and you're going to face challenges and successes no matter who you're working with. But I think with my sister, so I'll talk about the challenges first. When we first started this thing, it was out of my parents' home. She had also lost her job, and so we were living together at my parents in our early, mid to late 20s, which is not ideal.
Mhm.
So when we were starting this business together, like it was a very fun time. Like I felt like I was getting all these great ideas. I was listening to podcasts. I was reading books. I was absorbing all this stuff. I was exercising a ton. And so these are all things that I was just kind of like absorbing and then facilitating. And then my sister and I would have these chats about, building the website and getting things excited. So for me, it was a super exciting time in life collaborating with somebody to help kind of see this vision through. I feel like the biggest challenge that we've worked on is like there was a totally different level of involvement from the two of us. So my sister is much more of a creative person. She would do all the website design work. She'd make sure things look good. But the work ethic side of things was a little bit different. There was also another challenge was I was very obsessed about trying to grow the business and like go out and get sales and do that kind of stuff, and that just was something that never really excited her, was growing the business or going after sales. And then I think the other challenge that we encountered was it was a difference of mindset. Like when I look at the marketing that we're doing on the social media and the work that we're doing, and I've been able to experience this through the chamber, is that we are making phenomenal strides in terms of the work that we're doing, getting information out, storytelling, making sure that people feel like they're engaged and involved in the organization. And I think oftentimes when you're posting on social media or you're doing that type of stuff, it doesn't seem like it's resonating. And so that was another challenge where wasn't as fully aligned with the mission when we first started the business. I think over time, we've developed that where so the benefits now is as we've worked together since 2010, we have really formalized more of what our lanes are. And I mentioned I've taken over the chamber in more of a full-time capacity. So she's also taken on more of a leadership role in the business. And we've also brought on some really good team members that have really bought into the mission and are supporting both her and I. So the things that she and I are kind of deficient in when we're working with each other, the team that we have like is helping kind of build those bridges and gaps so that we're communicating better and they're also involved in that process too.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'd all agree that that's the crux of leadership. I mean, if we are not leveraging other people and their talents and really empowering them to own their roles and also challenging them to stretch in their capabilities, I think that we're leading really effectively. What I'm really curious about too is the kind of the transformation. I mean, if you're working side by side with your sister and she's the creative and you're a bit more the analytical, and there was one thing that really stuck out that you mentioned, which was as it pertains to marketing, you can be putting all this content out that you think is great, but you don't necessarily know if it's having the impact that you ultimately desire. So what were some of the key performance indicators, the success metrics. How did you better align your messaging so that you could draw more of the right clients in? And how were you assessing the value of the marketing tools that you were utilizing to ensure you're getting the output and results that you wanted?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I will say that I'm probably not in alignment with a lot of on going heavy on the analytical stuff.
Yeah.
I think so. I wrote a book called The Social Golf Course. So we have a niche in the golf industry. We
Mhm.
do a lot of social media marketing for golf courses, and there was a client that we started. That was one of my first clients. So when I started the digital marketing business, I sent an email out to all my family and friends. Hey, I'm starting the social media marketing business. I would love to see if you'd be interested in doing it for me. The golf course that I worked at when I was 17 to 24, while I was going through college, they hired me to do the social media out there. So we did phenomenal things for them. And we did do a lot of data-driven kind of results. Like I know that we did this big assessment where we're like 10xing what they were investing in the work that we're doing. So we did this really heavy analytical approach to it. And when I presented it to the board of directors, or I presented it to the general manager at the time, who had been a new hire stuff, he's like, Zeb, I think this social media thing's kind of a fad. I don't think it's working well. I think these people would have come to the door anyways. And so I had this experience of, I had been analyzing all this stuff. I had presenting it and showing it how successful this stuff has been, and it still wasn't even recognized. And so those are things, so that kind of drove me crazy. But in the golf industry, this was prior to COVID, but it was struggling. They were having a real tough time getting people in, just like chambers of commerce. I'm also involved in Rotary, just like Rotary. And my thought was, well, if I could take over one of these organizations and just like show how it's done, like I could make this successful. And so I got the chance to do that with the chamber, not realizing what it would actually turn into. But it did. I used all the social media strategies and tactics. Our chambers 10x'd over those 6 years. Obviously, we received national recognition for the work that we're doing. And this is in an industry where it's not like, same with golf is kind of on a rebound because of COVID and some other stuff. But those Rotary clubs, chambers of commerce, anything that has kind of membership base are all having issues right now. And so this is a way that we're modernizing the work that we're doing. We're leveraging social media. And you and I had a chat about AI earlier, leveraging artificial intelligence, the new technology and tools to help make businesses more successful are the things that we've implemented here. And so when I think of how I'm able to demonstrate success or what that looks like, it's like thinking socially is the way that I'll describe it. I'm sure you're familiar with Gary Vee.
Yeah, yeah.
Of my favorite things that he mentioned is like social media, like what is the ROI of your mom is what he would say. Like what is the ROI of social media? Like your mom raised you, she did all this stuff to improve the work that you're doing. And so because of that, you are who you are today. Social media, you can leverage it in 100 different ways to help advance and grow your business. You can use it as a focus group. You can use it to get feedback. You can use it to grow your business. You can use it to get feedback from your customers so you can make a better product. So all of those things, when you integrate it and you use it in that way, you're going to be a social organization that is leveraging your community to build a better business.
That's really interesting. So it's more about one thing I frequently talk with clients about is the need to be omnipresent, at least ultimately. It's initially we're going to start with the vehicle, like the area, the place where your clients hang out the most, and then over time we'll expand into multiple different platforms. Now, in a somewhat similar parallel, you're talking about the way to utilize social media more effectively is not just for brand development. It's not just for product research and polling. It's not just for building the business, but it's thinking about how can I diversify my efforts to gather more information so I can have better connections, be a better storyteller, drive the brand, and help businesses more effectively. So it's multiple facets.
I would agree with that. Yes, I feel like you can use it literally for anything that you would use to grow your business. So I think it's highly advantageous for anybody to leverage that tool along with all the other tools that technology is making available for us today.
Interesting. I got to know this. How's your golf game?
I mean, honestly, it's not bad. I mean, I'm a good golfer. My handicap is, I think, like a 6 or a 7 right now. So it's in comparison with the rest of the golfing world, I'm pretty good.
Not bad. I'm one of those golfers. I love to golf, but I get out like once or twice a year. And since I moved to Arizona, I don't know what, actually I can tell you exactly what it is. All the golf courses down here that I've had the opportunity to play are surrounded by houses. And where I came from in Washington, there might be a handful of houses on the golf course. And there's something about the psychology of seeing those houses that just, it's like an immediate shot straight at them. But I, I have to work on reframing my mindset and focusing down the course.
Right.
Now, another thing I was really interested or curious to ask you was the transition from business owner and collaborating with your sister to moving with the chamber. My personal experience with my chamber of commerce back home, it was good, but it was what I would generalize as what you might think of as like the kind of the stereotypical chamber experience. It's like, hey, let's bring everybody in, and we have the promo speaker, and now we'll do the round tables. It's like speed dating, and and in order for you to reach the level of acclaim that you have, I have to imagine that you're doing something a little bit differently. So what did you bring? How did you bring your background in business development and your marketing expertise to you shared a little bit about how you utilize that to grow the chamber, but what did you do in terms of the client experience to set yourselves apart and really help build that membership back up? Because the only way to build a membership base is to have an experience that people want to keep coming back to. So what did you do there to really engage your client, your community on such an effective level?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like one of the challenges that I had when I joined the chamber, and I don't know if your experience is this way, but when I did get involved, I did show up. It was like most of the people that were engaged were retired. They were working in their second business. I was probably the youngest person involved by like 30 years.
Yeah, spot on. Yeah.
That was my experience. And I'm just thinking like you and I, when you had that chat at the beginning, we're talking about we want to get involved in our business community. We're looking for mentorship. I had no clue what I'm doing. I'm looking for mentoring, grow. And I was looking for business organizations who could fit that role. And I could not find anything. The only thing that I found was a chamber. So my choices were I could either build something myself, which I did try. I mean, I tried building some kind of like business organizations, or I could get involved in the chamber. So I kind of did a little bit of both and experimented with both. When I got involved in the chamber, it was just like people started to recognize the good work that I was doing, and then so then encouraged me for opportunities and stuff like that. So I did find value there. But in terms of growing the chamber, so upon taking it over, and even before I was taking over, like I felt like it should be more reflective of our business. So our business community wasn't all 60 and over folks. It was representative of everybody in business. So I would proactively go out and just invite people of different demographics, different races, different ages to get involved in the stuff that we're doing. So that was number one in terms of getting involved. The low hanging fruit for me when I did take over was we had this Chairman's Circle sponsorship program, which I think we had like 4 or 5 businesses participating in. So these were like large sponsors. So I went out and pitched to some of our businesses like these higher levels of sponsorships. And over the last 6 years, we've gone from 5 to like 50. So those big sponsorships are really financially supporting the organization. So that's another thing I brought. But the biggest thing was I was attending these chamber conferences. So very like professional development is super important to me. I want to make sure that I'm taking advantage of those opportunities. There's an organization called the Western Association of Chamber Executives, of which I'm an executive board member right now. But when I started, I went to this event, and I won't forget it because I was talking with somebody who ran a chamber, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we got this $1 million contract to do whatever it was." And I was like, "You could make $1 million doing this stuff?" And to me, that was kind of mind blowing. So I tried to explore the different ways that chambers were making that type of funds, and one of the things that it's an issue for businesses, but it's an issue for communities is this workforce development piece. So we really tried to help tap into support our businesses by providing these workforce development programs to make sure that our businesses have the workforce they need to be successful in our community. And so when we did that, we went out and sought funds to do that. So we solicited all of our legislators, we solicited all of our businesses, and one of my goals when I started my business was to make $1 million by the end of the year. And when we did that, we were awarded $1 million in one day, which is kind of an exciting thing for me because that was a goal that I had when I started my business was just to make $1 million a year. And then to do it in one day was pretty awesome.
Yeah, That is absolutely amazing. Talk to me a little bit more. I mean, you talk about investing back in the community, and it's specifically into the workforce. What did that look like for you guys? Because again, a lot of the stuff that I experienced again was the monthly chamber event and the round tables, and then of course businesses would sponsor events, and it would be their anniversary dinners, and mostly just a bunch of people getting together and drink and be social, not really, develop business and create genuine relationships. At least that's how it felt. It felt more like checking a box than something that was really helping the individual, the organization, or the people within to grow. And development sounds like a cornerstone for your journey, which I imagine has to be a key component to what you brought to your local chamber. So how have you brought some of those pieces in to really help grow the individual so they can help grow their organizations and subsequently workforce?
Yeah, so the program that we pitched, we call it Upskill Chino Valley, right?
Mhm.
So I had, interestingly, at the time that I had started kind of going down this workforce development path, I had met this gal who was the president of the school board in the school district we run. So Chino Valley Unified School District, she was president of the school board. And we were talking about, we were both born and raised here. And I had the experience where a lot of my friends left our community to find jobs somewhere else. And so I would have loved, and I think they would have loved to stay in our community, but they just couldn't find a job that made sense for them.
Mhm.
So they all traveled around the country. And now that I'm in the role that I'm in now, like I know that those jobs are here, and I'm sure that they would have stayed here had they known, but they just didn't know that those jobs were available to them. So that was a shared experience that we had. And she was working on creating pathways for students in our community to get like real world exposure to local businesses, because that's not something I had when I was going through school. I never had any mentors. I wish I would have had somebody who had owned their business that I could have met while I was going through high school or college that lived locally, but I didn't. So that's something that I was trying to foster and create in our community. So we created this Upskill, it's UPSKILL, Upskill Chino Valley, and we kind of focused around 4 different things. So we focused it around workforce development. So the way that we typically do that was by hosting job fairs, doing one-on-one placements, making sure that our businesses have resources so that they can identify workforce. We're also identifying like grant programs and funding streams. So I think over the last 3 years, we've probably got like $3 or $4 million that we can give directly to businesses to help them
Wow.
hire people. We have economic development. So the way that we mostly facilitate that, you mentioned roundtables, but we're bringing in like manufacturing businesses to discuss the challenges they're facing. And then we are taking action items from those discussions and then implementing so that we're like solving their issues, their big key issues.
Brilliant.
The leadership development, that's the third one. We started a leadership program, which a lot of chambers have leadership programs. So it's not necessarily unique, but it is something unique for our community. So we never had one. So we started that one. And then entrepreneurship development. And so recently, well, we were awarded $1.25 million to build an entrepreneurship center in our community from our congresswoman. Although I will say that with the federal freeze of funding yesterday, we're not sure what that's going to look like.
Yeah.
We did. We were tentatively awarded that, and we're kind of keeping our fingers crossed that that's still going to come through in the future.
Yeah, I'll keep our fingers crossed for you too. That's amazing. What's really cool about what you're doing is there's several things that you said that I did not experience within the community. I mean, the leadership development aspect of it, the times where you're bringing, like you mentioned, the manufacturing companies in, and you're helping to basically, what in my language, I would say mastermind and help them to solve and overcome some of these challenges. And it's those real world opportunities to think outside of the box and collaborate on somebody else's business problems that I think create a brilliant chance for us to take a step back and learn through proxy by helping to solve other people's challenges. So what a beautiful gift in terms of that. And then actually teaching entrepreneurship. To me, that is one of the most overlooked, and personally, I think it should be a core component of any high school curriculum. We're not teaching entrepreneurship. This isn't the Industrial Revolution any longer. It's like our what did you guys do? How did you come to that idea of let's start developing entrepreneurs within the community? And what are some of the key focal points that you have?
Yeah. When I started, I mentioned the story about my sister when she and I first started. Like for me, that was like the most eye-opening period of my life. And I had attended this thing called the Millionaire Mind, and I know that you were mentioning that you have some kind of mentors that you've been engaged and involved in.
Mhm.
So I went there for a weekend, and it just like reframed the way that I was thinking about, my profession or like my professional career and path and stuff. So that was super helpful. But then when my sister and I were working as a business, like getting that started, like that was just a very like eye-opening, like I was absorbing a ton of information. I mentioned listening to podcasts, audiobooks and all that stuff. So I was just absorbing that things like crazy at that time. And then I felt like my brain was just on fire with all these ideas and like thoughts. So it was a very exciting time in life. And so like if I could duplicate that for people, I feel like I'm making the world a better place. And I saw this, I mentioned that I was doing tutoring with one of the kids. So the main kid that I was tutoring, like he was just the laziest, and he will agree with this. He was the laziest kid. He did not want to do anything. And actually, there was the first year that I worked with him, the goal, I figured like I'm a professional teacher. I could get him to have straight A's. And so I worked with them for the whole year. We did all of the work together. We had this makeup, like we had a time where we could make up work and submit it to the teacher. So we did all the makeup work. I met with all his teachers, and then he still failed a bunch of his classes. And I found this out years later, but I asked him like what happened because we did all the work together. He's like, I threw it away. Like I went to school that day and I threw away all the makeup work that we had done together. And he just wanted to hold on to that kind of like mentality. But as I was starting my business and I was doing all this work, like I could see him getting more excited and enthusiastic about the stuff that he was doing because he could see me getting excited and enthusiastic. So from like a life perspective, I feel like if I'm able to duplicate that for other people where they have that sense of passion, purpose, and conviction, that I'm making the world a better place, especially when they're doing it for those things you mentioned at the beginning. I love either helping people or getting people to do what they're good at, help other people. I totally forgot what those three things are right now. I love helping people do what they're good at, who are helping other people and are making a difference.
That's fascinating. As you're telling the story about the student you're mentoring, I mean, that is a fascinating out that he made the decision not to simply turn in all the work. But it resonated with me at a very high level because in school, I was never a great student, at least when I was a part of formal schooling. But the real reason that I didn't do the work wasn't because I was lazy. I have come to realize and believe that it was more fear-based. It was self-worth. It was, if I turn this in and I don't get an A, then I'm going to feel worse about myself. So at least if I get shitty grades, I'm already predicting the outcome and, I can already see and feel what it's going to be like. I don't have to change anything. But it was, a random series of events, one of my first jobs and then taking over the business where I became the devout enthusiast when it comes to personal growth and development and ongoing education. And I invest and have invested a tremendous amount, be it going to professional development seminars and certifications. And I read about a book a week or every 2 weeks, depending on the month or if I repeat it once or twice. But it was that fear initially, and I couldn't even identify it. I wasn't wise enough to see at that time. This is in reflection now. But I think so often those are some of the circumstances, the unspoken ideas, the beliefs that are driving people's decisions that either guide them into what everybody's told to do, go to school, get a good job, live your life. And that's also what leads to a lack of fulfillment for so many people. But sometimes actually, I think everybody is given countless different opportunities, different gifts in the form of challenges that they either have the opportunity to rise up and pursue what something is calling them to do, or to fall into, what we might refer to as mediocrity, the traditional path that most people go down. How for you, well, first of all, do you agree with any of those thoughts or insights? Is that something that you've personally experienced? Might you label that experience in a similar way? And how have you seen some people break through that? Or maybe it's something that you work through yourself.
Yeah, I'll tell you some of the things that I went through. I think to me, mindset is probably the most important. And it's like you mentioned, I think when you're running a business, like you fail all of the time. And so you make wrong choices, you make wrong decisions. And that's just something that it's not natural for a lot of people because you want to be like the one that's getting everything right all the time. And the reality of it is that like life doesn't work that way. And especially if you're trying to push on beyond other things. So like when I mentioned that issue with my sister and I working together, where I knew that this, like, in my mind, I'm just like, I know we can figure it out. There are people that are using social media and they're using it to grow a business. And I know that we can figure this thing out because we're smart enough and we can figure it out. I think in her mind, it's like, well, like I'm doing this stuff, but then it's like you take the feedback and then you improve on it and you do that. And that's where that like dissonance came from. I'll tell you the breakthrough that I had when I first started, because when I started my business, I think I mentioned I made a decision. I don't even remember why. It was like January 1, so New Year's resolution. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start this business. I am going to, like, my goal was to make $1 million. I am going to work from the time that I wake up until the time that I go to bed. And I know I can make it because I'm smart enough and can do it. So I did that for that whole year. And I think the main thing that I set, there's a book that I read or a podcast I listened to, was just like do 5 things that's going to move you in the direction of what your goals are every single day. And so I had no clue where to start. I remember feeling kind of lost right before that. But just by doing those 5 or 6 things every single day, moving myself in a positive directions towards what those goals were, made a huge difference. And now it's just like ingrained part of my life now, where I have 1,000 things that I'm doing and I don't even think about it. Whereas in before, I remember it being a real struggle. So that was more of a mindset shift, is that I know I can figure it out. I know I can work towards things. And that's what I want to instill in other people too, is like, you can figure all this stuff out if you're passionate enough about it, you're willing to accept the losses, and you're willing to move forward no matter what. You're gonna experience success.
Yeah, absolutely. To me, a couple thoughts came to mind. It's one, movement creates momentum. Never leave the sight of a goal without taking some sort of action towards, whether it's as little as just time blocking 20 minutes on your calendar to ideate, or writing down the goal and the desired outcome and your purpose behind it. I mean, it doesn't matter how small the step is, but take some sort of step. And second, you talk about mindset, and it's so interesting because it's almost become a taboo phrase in business, in the business world today, because everybody's talking about mindset. But at the same time, I don't think most people have really taken a step back and analyzed or really looked at internally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, in every context. What does that mean to you? And how could asking a new question or surrounding yourself with a new group of people transform your life? And I think that's what I'm hearing. One of the beautiful gifts that you're providing with the chamber and both your business is the opportunity to get around other people. Because I know that was one of the most transformative things for me, was making the investment to surround myself with people that were doing things that I had never done, that accomplished things that I didn't know I could potentially accomplish. And as you do, you start to realize that the people that we tend to put on a pedestal they're just that, they're just people. And if they've accomplished this, there's nothing that says that I can't. There's nothing that says that I won't. But you are going to run into challenges. But every challenge is a gift. Every problem is an opportunity by design to help you reach your next level. So Zeb, this has been a really fantastic interview today. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. So I want to thank you for joining me, and thank you for spending your time with us on the Perpetual Growth Podcast. So big shout out to Zeb Welborn for bringing so much value to today's conversation. Zeb, where can our listeners connect with you if they want to learn more about the work that you're doing at the Chamber or with your media business? I have to assume that there's multiple opportunities on each platform for you to help continue to make an impact. So where can our listeners find you?
Yeah, well, I'll just say that one, my name is super easy to find. My dad was a reporter, and so he named me because he thought that my name would make a good byline in a newspaper article. But in this internet age, Zeb Welborn, you can find me anywhere. There's nobody else with that name. So I would recommend checking those out. Obviously, the Chino Valley Chamber, we have our website, chinovalleychamber.com. And then Welborn Media is the name of our digital marketing company. So that's wellbornmedia.com. And then I know that I say this so often, so it's going to bother me that I mess it up. But these are the three things that I love helping people do. I love it. I love helping people who love what they do, who are good at it, and who help other people.
That's beautiful. So we will see you next time, Zeb. Thanks again for joining us today, and have a fantastic week.
Thank you, Zach. You too.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Perpetual Growth Podcast. If you found value in today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. We've got more game-changing insights to help you grow in business, relationships, and health. Until then, keep pushing forward, keep learning, and keep becoming the best version of yourself. See you next time.